All right. Well, here we are. I told our neighbor this morning, I said, hey, we're on Facebook. And I didn't say Facebook Live. I should have said Facebook Live. But, I can't see. Is that you, Frank? Facebook Live. And I said, you ought to check that out. And he's new neighbor, shared his heart about losing his brother who was 25 just about 3 years ago. And he's blaming himself. He's just having a difficult time. And I'm sure God's name's in there somewhere, and so be lifting up our dear neighbor. But today our world is operating with many, 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 many differing values. And, these sets of values. This is my value system. So I asked myself, what's a value? Well, I'm having Merriam-Webster help me out. And it's interesting, it's Merriam-Webster. It used to be Webster, but Merriam must have picked up. And so Webster's kind of drug into this. He was a wonderful Christian man, but he's affiliated now with Merriam. But here's what they say. Value, the regard something is held to deserve. Value, importance, worth, usefulness to you. Value, a person's principles or standard of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life. So my question is, what are your, and everyone can answer this privately, your personal values? You got them. If you go by our house, you'll see we have neighbors that put out signs for the election. And we're trying to figure out what kind of sign should we put out. And so I think we both agreed we're going to find a sign, and I know it's out there, that says, we are values voters. Which is still a bit vague to people. And because then, whose values? What values? Values voters, And here are two values, if you will, that we would think would cover all of the world's ills. Ready for those two values? If you were to choose them, personally choose them as a value. My greatest value is this, to love the Lord every day more and more with all my heart, with all my mind, with all my strength. That's my value. Number two, I think will top most political values, and that is, those that are floating around there today, I will love my neighbor just as I love myself. Regardless of, you fill in the blank. Two values that will keep us busy, I think. I think will also quiet the rhetoric going on that seems to be getting more and more intense. And then if they're allowed by you or me to be values 1 and 2, well, Jesus really went a step further, and he said, these are not just values. These are the 2 greatest commandments. But we still have to personally choose. We still have to say, Jesus, I hear you. I will follow these. We still have to make that choice. Now, it's obvious we live in a world with competing values. Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. My sexuality versus God's design of sexuality. Perhaps you noticed one of the authors' commentary. This was just a few days ago. Her commentary of the current unrest in the cities. She was on NPR this week, and her name is Vicky Osterweil. She's touting her new book, which she just finished in April, but decided to release it this week. In Defense of Looting is the name of the book. In Defense of Looting. And this is what she says. This is a part of her value system. Looting provides people with an imaginative sense of freedom and pleasure and helps them imagine a world that could be. Rioting and looting are experienced as joyous and liberating. Can you imagine that? Church after church, what we're going to do is we're going to get together and we're going to joyously and creatively break the windows of the Pink Perch or Maryland's and take whatever you want.
With a smile.
With a smile, with joy. It's been very clear to me that the value systems of the world entertains, it's different from the biblical value system. A young man that we've known since he was 5, I mentioned him the other week. He's now 18 and he's working a seasonal job. And he says to me the other day, you know, I'm going to have to pick up probably 3 jobs because my girlfriend and I want to move in together. Now that's a value that is being reinforced over and over and over again to young men and young women. He, in this case, was told about Jesus, but never really embraced Jesus as his Savior or his hero. So words that went out, but weren't really received. So now my mind is naturally buzzing with thoughts based on that. A lot of different values floating around. Progressive values, conservative values, personal values, kingdom values, biblical values. Do any of them agree, or are they in conflict? Many of you know Daniel from the Bible was forcefully taken from his country, Israel, which was basically being judged by God and decimated because they chose to follow godless values. They were given commandments and values to bless them, as we know, we've heard from Deuteronomy. And if you're thinking, hey, you know what, that's just like the slaves, that'd be okay. Here was Daniel and his friends, probably somewhere between 10 or 18 years old when they were taken, and they lived out the whole 70 years in captivity in Babylon. When Darius becomes king, Daniel's thrown into the lion's den. He's probably in his 80s when this takes place. In all of his life in a foreign land full of foreign values. Magic, fortune-telling, infanticide. And so Daniel has a decision to make in his teens. What is my value system? And so I want you to listen to his dilemma and his personal choices. I'm going to be reading from the Message. This is Daniel 1. Babylon declared war on Jerusalem and besieged the city. The king told Ashpenaz, head of the palace staff, to get some Israelites from royal family and nobility, young men who were healthy, handsome, intelligent, well-educated, good prospects for leadership positions in the government, perfect specimens, and indoctrinate them in the Babylonian language and lore of magic and fortune-telling. The king then ordered that they serve the same menu as the royal table, the best food, the best wine. After 3 years of training, they would be given position in the king's court. I looked up the word indoctrinate. Very interesting definition. To teach a person or a group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically, without questions. 4 young men from Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, were among those selected. The head of the palace staff gave them Babylonian names. Daniel was now Belteshazzar, Hananiah was Shadrach, Mishael was Meshach, and Azariah was Abednego. But Daniel determined that he would not defile himself by eating the king's food or drinking his wine. Now, we know defile within Israel is disobedience to dietary laws, many other meanings. But he decided, you know what? This goes against my faith. Whether he was 10, 11, 18, he caught that. So he determines he's not going to defile himself by eating the king's food or drinking his wine. So he asked the head of the palace staff to exempt him from the royal diet. The head of the palace staff, by God's grace, liked Daniel, but he warned him, I'm afraid of what my master, the king, will do. He's the one who assigned this diet, and if he sees you're not healthy as the rest, he'll have my head." But Daniel appealed to a steward who had been assigned to the head of the palace staff. He has an idea. "Try us out for 10 days, a simple diet of vegetables and water. Then compare us with the young men who eat from the royal menu. Make your decision on the basis of what you see." The steward agrees to do it and fed them vegetables and water for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked better and more robust than all the others who had been eating from the royal menu. So the steward continued to exempt them from the royal menu of food and drink and served them only vegetables. God gave these 4 young men knowledge and skill in both books and life. In addition, Daniel was gifted in understanding all sorts of visions and dreams. At the end of this time set by the king for their training, the head of the royal staff brought them to Nebuchadnezzar. When the king interviewed them, he found them far superior to all the other young men. None were a match for Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, or Azariah. And so they took their place in the king's service. Whenever the king consulted them on anything, on books on it or on life, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his kingdom put together. Daniel continued in the king's service until the first year in the reign of King Cyrus. Daniel decided, "I will not compromise my commitment to God and his values and accept these current dietary or educational values of this new country." And we see God blesses them with extraordinary skills. He blesses them for putting him first. Next, we see Daniel's friends confronted with a serious choice, Daniel 3. King Nebuchadnezzar builds a golden statue, 90 feet high, 9 feet thick. He sets it up on the Dura plain in the province of Babylon. He then orders all the important leaders in the province, everybody who was anybody, to the dedication ceremony of this statue. They all come for the dedication. All the important people and took their places before the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had erected. A herald then proclaims in a loud voice, "Attention everyone, every race, color, and creed, listen. When you hear the band strike up, all the trumpets, trombones, tubas, baritones, drums, cymbals, fall to your knees and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Anyone who does not kneel and worship shall be thrown immediately into a roaring furnace." The band starts to play, a huge band equipped with all these instruments in Babylon, and everyone, every race, color, creed, falls to their knees and worships the golden statue. Just then, some of the Babylonian fortune tellers step up and accuse the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "Long live the king! You give strict orders, O king, that when the band starts playing, everyone falls to their knees and worships this golden statue. And whoever did not go to their knees to worship it will be pitched into a roaring furnace." Well, there are some Jews here, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you placed in high positions in the province of Babylon. These men are ignoring you, O king. They don't respect your gods, and they won't worship the gold statue you set up. This is Nebuchadnezzar's pride, which we know hurt him all the way along. Furious, King Nebuchadnezzar orders Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be brought in. When they're brought in, he says, "Is this true? You don't respect my God, refuse to worship the golden statue that I've set up? All right, I'm going to give you a second chance. But from now on, when the band strikes up, you must go to your knees, worship the statue that I made, and if you don't, you'll be pitched into a roaring furnace."